We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey. Hello, and welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Tickle, and our guest today is Sanar Alixandyr, and she's an empowerment coach and an energy healer. She's also an author of the book Becoming Sanar: A Shadow to Light, A Journey of Self-Discovery. She's going to share her story with us. Thank you so much. And then she's got some great information for us. And we'll talk about this later, but the 5 P's for personal empowerment, and their passion, purpose, power, perfect, and peace. So Sanar, thank you for joining us today.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, I was very, very excited to have you on today. We're going to talk about some really great stuff. Anytime we're going to talk about empowerment or, teach on that, I love it because it's just so important in our lives, right? And it's a big part of helping us on our healing journey for sure.
Yes.
So tell us about
you. As we gather together in that mission, that passion and that purpose, it really uplifts those in our families, those in our circles, and it ripples out way farther than you can even imagine.
Yeah, it's like dropping a pebble in the pond and those ripples going out, and they go out to the family, friends, and even strangers. It can be some stranger that it can affect in a positive way for sure.
Absolutely. I think that's a lost concept that we think we don't really make a difference in our little lives and our little experiences, good or bad, whatever. But no, it really does ripple out. It makes a huge wave.
You just never know who's listening, who's watching. You just never know, and it's like with this podcast. I mean, I don't look at the numbers. Very rarely do I look behind the scenes to see, how many people are listening, how many, that's not my focus. My focus is really to try to put good content out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, because what I do know to be true is there are people that are listening or watching that I may never know about, and hopefully, bringing positive help into their life. And so, that's okay. I'm okay with that. If it's helping just one person, that's great, right?
Yay!
Yay!
Yes. That one starfish, right? That analogy.
Mm-hmm. Share that analogy.
Pardon me?
Go ahead and share that analogy.
Share it. Mm-hmm. If you're walking along the beach and you see a starfish and you throw it back into the ocean, it makes a huge difference. Just even if it's just one little starfish.
Just one little starfish. Exactly. We all matter. That's what really the bottom line is. Even that little starfish matters.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
So tell us your story. Tell us about you and how you became an empowerment coach and an energy healer.
Oh, wow. Well, life just sucked for a very long time.
I can relate to that.
I'm just going to say. Yeah. I was born into a very sad and lost family as a child. And I've heard you speak, there's so much wisdom in history and understanding what's going on in a larger picture, which is kind of my passion, evidently. Yeah. And so my parents were very lost and very sad, and my father very angry and abusive, my mother shut down and narcissistic and controlling and manipulative. And there was just no space to exist as a child. And in my father's anger, some very massive abuse occurred with some near-death experiences. The first one he gifted me with was at the age of 2 in a fit of anger. He threw me up against the wall and I popped out of the body and just like in the movies, floated up to the ceiling, looking down very confusedly at what I termed a rag doll on the floor, and my daddy standing there, and just not understanding what that was all about. but he then kicked the rag doll and I got sucked back into the body. So that was my first experience with I'm not a human. Who I know myself to be is something other than in the physical body, and being in the physical body was a very dangerous thing. So that was my first shutdown, shut off. And then things like that just kind of kept occurring. I was abducted at the age of 9 by two men in a car, and
Oh, God.
basically, I'm just going to use the word. Some people have an issue with it, but basically was murdered, was raped, and terrorized. And I left the body again and went down a dark tunnel and was afraid. I did see a light, like in the movies, but I was afraid to go to the light. So I turned around my consciousness and came back and hid within my mind until they were done with the body and left it. And then I consciously breathed back into the body and then chose to forget, you know, chose to forget all memory of that and just kind of wandered on my way. My third near death experience was at the age of 16. Again, sexual abuse and rape, and this time I was leaving. I was like, "Woohoo! I'm done!" You know,
Yeah.
yay!
Yeah.
Let me free me. I'm floating. It was just up in Washington State, where I currently reside, and was floating up above the beautiful trees. And I saw a couple of angels, which was just like, yay, take me home. I'm just so ready. And they sent me back. They said, no, you have work to do. And sent me back into the body to complete my experience. And I blocked all memory of that until I was 30 years old. So through my childhood and into my adolescence and my early adulthood, I was just lost and running. I was sexually promiscuous. I was overweight. I was starving myself. I was just not there. I just had hidden myself, my true self, so far away that I was just doing like, you want to abuse me? Okay, that's just all I know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm over here. You can't touch me. I'm not afraid of anything. People have killed me. You know, what are you gonna do to scare me?
Yeah.
So at the age of 30 something, I was a single mom with a beautiful young boy, and I was just suicidal, and I was just a mess, and I was running from my second marriage, and I was just driving down the road in Phoenix, Arizona. And someday I'm going to write a song entitled, it's called Phoenix for a Reason. What a place to go to burn yourself up and find your true essence self. And I just was at a stoplight and I was like, there is something really wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. You know, so I called out to a God I had no longer believed in and said, God, tell me what's wrong with me. And nothing happened.
Yeah.
Except that I was making a living as a professional musician. So I was singing here and playing there, and went to sing at a brunch for a lovely lady. And I was approached by a minister from a church and said, we'd love you to come and, you know, do music for our church. And I said, I don't do churches. I don't do churches. Classic line.
Yeah. My
But I
line
needed
too.
the money. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I don't do churches. It's like, but I was a single mom. I needed the money. I needed to work, and I had been raised in a very strict religious environment. So I knew every hymn. I know church music inside and out. So I said, well, I'll come every other week, you know, and play music and support you in your mission. I'm happy to do that because music is such a universal language.
Yeah.
I'm not attached to what I'm performing or what I'm singing. I'm attached to it makes a difference for the person that's receiving
Right.
the music. And pretty soon that was where I met my soul sister who had done energy work and she wanted to practice on me. And that I said, sure. How long will it take? And she said, oh, about 20 minutes. I said, okay. Well, months later and hours later, I had gone through this whole post-traumatic stress experience where I lived through these childhood experiences, which number one made me think I was crazy. But number two, or number one, the real number one, explained to me why I was such a mess. And so through this energy work and through this persistence, I managed to unearth all of these things that happen, come to a sense of who I really am, and began living from that spark of light. So when I finished the process, I wanted to help other women, as we love to do.
Mm-hmm.
Once we find something like, oh, it can be better for you, let me share.
Yes. I want to
And
make it better for you.
I want to make it better for you, for all of us. Like, I feel so
Yes.
much better. I want you to feel better too.
Exactly.
Yeah. And people were like, oh, you're just a singer. What do you have to say? And I'd be like, well, I didn't want to tell the story. I wanted to share what I learned from my story.
Right.
And people were like, oh, you want to know the story. And so I put it into a musical drama, because life is a musical drama.
True. Yes, it
Should
is.
be.
Yes.
So I told the little girl's story and what happened to her and how she dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did most people who split into different personalities. I didn't trust people, evidently. I split into animals. I made a dragon that held all my anger. I made a panther that held on to things so that I wouldn't explode into things. I made my emotions a robot so I wouldn't be attacked. I had all of these
All your
defenses.
protectiveness.
All my protectiveness were animals to protect me. So I always have felt and still feel a great nurturing in nature.
Me
I just
too.
love nature. It just helps me to breathe.
It does.
So I put the story into a play. Ooh, I just unplugged myself. And began to share the musical. And so I had angels in the play who guided and guarded me. And I wrote music that they would sing to the little girl while she's going through this, that she was beautiful and she was powerful, and someday she would find out why all these things happened to her. And it all came true. And so someday is here. And that's how I got to this moment. I'm now sharing the story in the book so that people can just, the play was quite traumatic for a lot of people. It was very difficult for them to watch. And I was like, I would stop on stage and go, I'm okay. Like, these things happen to me, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
That's my goal. But they were like, oh my goodness sakes. Oh, okay. So I stopped doing that. But continued to sing and share, and then was inspired to produce this book, just telling the story of Linda, the name of the little girl that was born named Linda, and how I discovered Sanar within that, the spirit and soul that came to do this and to share the healing that is possible for all of us.
Yeah, that's one thing you did, is you were born Linda, but you have changed your name to Sanar.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about that. Like, what caused you to change your name? I kind of think I know, but I want to hear from you.
Probably do. Yeah, it came through my healing journey. I always hated my name. I didn't think Linda was a very powerful name, and I felt like I had to be really strong and powerful my entire life. Even though I was shut down, it was like, but these were my powers, right? My shields. And through the unearthing of the memories with the post-traumatic stress issues and discovering my real self, my guardian angel named Ola kept saying, you've got to heal the ego. You got to heal the ego. And so I considered Linda, the little girl where all these horrible things happened to her, the ego. Like, that's not who I was. I, even as a child, knew, like, this isn't me. What they're doing to me isn't me.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
but
good.
they were big and I was little. So I had no power to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So when it came time. I kept trying to get rid of Linda, and she just wouldn't go. she she was like really tenacious. Like, nope. I would catapult her into the sky, and she'd come right back, like a puppy dog. like, and so I made a promise to her that I would tell her story.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
I
She
would
wanted to be
tell her
heard.
story. Yeah, yeah. And so, and I wanted to change the name that I was going by, and so it was gifted to me that Sanar actually means to heal, and that is my spirit name when I'm not being Linda
Got it.
in physical body. And so, I said, can I do that? Can you be like your real self, and live life from there? And they were like, yeah, you can. Cool. That sounds much more exciting and empowering. And so that was how I legally changed my name to Sanar. And then someone said I wanted to change the last name because I never, I approached my family unit, all of them saying, I'm having these experiences. Can you read a book? Can you help me with counseling? Going through this. And my parents gathered all of my relatives and told them I was crazy and they didn't know why I was doing this. And so, like, oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Never mind. We just let that go.
Yeah.
And I never, because of the way the memories came up, I never wanted to attack them for what they did. I just wanted it gone. I just wanted to be healed for myself. I didn't have time to worry about who did what and why did they do it. And it was like, just get it out. Just get myself here, present and accounted for. So,
Well, you are a statistic. I don't think you know that. Yeah.
okay.
So the statistic is, and this came from Bobby Click, one of my guests in the past, who helps children in sports who are being abused.
Oh, wow.
And he had a statistic that women, the time that they're usually first sexually abused is between the ages of 13 and 17. You fit that category, right? And they don't talk about it for 4 decades. So you were a little sooner because you were in your 30s, but they hold that in for 4 decades and they suffer for 4 decades.
Yeah.
And it's the shame that shuts down their voice and they suffer. And so when they're in their 40s, that whole time they're suffering and they're having the effects of trying to stuff this stuff down and not deal with it. And then in their 40s is when they start having an awakening and when they can really. But that's a long time for people to suffer for something that they didn't do.
True. True. It's true. It is. Yeah.
So you were unfortunately an example of that statistic. And I know that to be true as well. When I did the women's workshop and I was helping women with their healing, that was very common. And it wasn't just sexual abuse though either. I mean, I found that to be true with all kinds of, including myself.
Right.
I mean, I didn't go around telling everybody I was abused. I kept it.
No.
I was ashamed, because that abuse told me that I had no value. So I'm not going to tell people I was abused because then they're going to guess my game. They're going to figure out that I have no value.
Right.
The way our brain works, right? But that's the little kid brain working, right? It's the little kid in us working and trying to protect us.
Absolutely.
So
for
interesting.
Sure.
So
yeah, the brain is an incredibly powerful thing,
and not always accurate.
No.
Can't, and
I think that
tough.
was a lot of why I just let it go. It's like, maybe I am crazy. Whatever it is, let's just heal it and live happily ever after.
I'm so glad to hear, and is so uncommon, is when you were going through your abuse that you realized that it was them, that it was their fault. They were the bad guys. You didn't do anything wrong, which is so uncommon because most of the time, I know for me, I was not sexually abused. Fortunately, I had all the other abuse, but I 100% thought for a while, oh, I get it. I was born to be a punching bag. That's my job. I'm a punching bag. Got it. Okay. Got it.
Right.
That's what I believed, that's what I was there for, instead of realizing, oh, they were being wrong. They were the wrong.
Yes.
I wasn't the wrong.
I remember the first time somebody told me that, I was like, what? Because when you're raised in that, when you're raised in that constrictive environment, they're right and you're wrong. I just assumed I was. I didn't have to tell anybody. That was just like, yeah, of course I'm wrong.
So you dealt with religious abuse as well then.
I did.
And that's a subject that I've wanted to talk about before too. And
Oh,
I'm going to have some
okay.
experts on too, because that's a big one. And, and it's not
It
just your
is.
parents. I mean, it's
No,
within the church, the people, there's a lot. And I've witnessed a lot of abuse, and I'm still
right.
deconstructing on a lot of my stuff.
Are you?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I am. I'm
I like how
literally.
you put that, deconstructing, you
Yeah,
know.
I'm going.
Yeah.
It's not as intense now as it was. I have a pretty clear understanding of where I stand.
Hmm.
And I don't wish anything bad on anybody else. It's just not my thing. And
Right.
me and God, we're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're great.
Yeah.
We're great. We're on good
Okay.
terms. Absolutely. He's been in my life before church was in my life. So,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
the source, the
yeah,
great and beautiful and wonderful infinite source. I
that's
just love
right.
that. Whether it's whatever word we need to call it is beautiful. I have no attachment.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of music in a lot of different religious structures, and it's just kind of fascinating. I used to say, I was sent by God
You
because
probably
I
were.
needed to learn something, right?
Hmm.
But it was a great exploration of, how my concept is God is food. Whatever nourishes you, whatever works for you, whatever, history, whatever tradition, whatever nourishes you in a positive way and brings goodness to yourself and your heart is,
Yeah.
I would call it God, but that doesn't mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
There's nothing.
beautiful.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, and it's just like, it's interesting you talk about music, because I still love to worship, and music is so emotional for me. I mean, I'm so moved by music, and I still
Mm,
love that. I mean, there's certain things about the church that I miss, like I love worshiping,
yes.
and I love hearing a good sermon. I do. It's just all the other stuff that I choose to stay away from, and I've seen a lot of hurt, and that is what I can't be a part of
It's
anymore.
right, right.
I just can't.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
So.
it is universal
Hmm.
in all religions and
Correct.
all peoples.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. So yeah,
No, I
I
agree.
really appreciated your concept about deconstructing, because you kind of go, okay, so all the rules and the things that you told me, and it's like, all right, that's all well and good. Where's this?
Right.
Where's your soul self? Where's your real self? Your beautiful self. You don't have to be all those things that people told you were
Yes.
or needed
Yes.
to be. So
And it's tough doing the deconstructing, because there's some things that it's interesting. I'll think of something and I'm like, it doesn't sit with me well, but it still sticks with me because it's such an old belief. Does that make sense?
yes, yes,
And I'm like, wait a minute, I that belief is still there. It like still affects me. Like it still makes me
yes.
stop and think and go, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't believe that anymore. That's not true in my life, but it's so embedded in my thinking still that I have to, the self-awareness I talk about all the time is so important, because I catch myself, because I go down those roads and I'm like, wait a minute. Because as soon as I start going down those roads, I start feeling weird. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm,
what am I
mm-hmm,
thinking about?
mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking about, okay, no, I have to
Right,
change my thinking. As Joyce Meyer
right.
says, change my stinking thinking.
I love Joyce Meyer.
I
She's
know.
wonderful. What a
She is
hoot!
someone who has
What a hoot!
changed my life.
Did she?
Honest to goodness. I have
Oh,
been watching her since 1997.
uh-huh.
Honest to God, that woman, her ministry has literally changed my life. I love how she brings God into the picture, but she brings her human self.
Yes.
She gets up there and she tells her nitty gritty, awful stories about herself. She's just transparent, and you can connect with her. I mean, I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
She's been
yeah.
hugely
Very
inspirational in my
real.
life. Very
Yeah.
real.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. Um, I was not raised in a religious house. It was quite the opposite, actually. My mom was very both my parents were, I'm not going to church. I was forced to go to church as a kid all the time, so I'm not going to church. But I went to church as a little girl
Oh,
by
yeah.
myself. I'd have my mom wake me up. I was like
Wow.
5 years old. She'd wake me up and I'd get on the little Sunday school bus and go to church every Sunday. I don't know what got me
Wonderful.
started in that. I have no idea. I know that family friends were going and invited me, but like as far back as I can remember, I've had a relationship with God. So it's just He's always been in my life. So interesting, but yeah. So I was raised in the opposite of you,
Yeah.
and then I had a brother that got into Scientology.
Oh my.
Yeah. Oh my, that's a whole nother podcast, right? Yeah, I could tell you
Yeah.
some stories that would curl your
Oh my.
hair. Seriously, they
Yeah.
were coming after me 30 years after. Yeah, they were
Wow.
literally trying to find me and my brother. It
Wow.
was scary. 9 o'clock at night, they're calling me. I had been married for over 20 years. My name had changed, and they're calling me at like 9:30 at night, looking for my brother.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so I have a
Yeah.
little experience there.
It's all part of life. All of these
Yeah,
opportunities and choices and
experiences.
yeah. What are you going to believe? Who are you going to be?
Hmm.
How are you going to find? I guess that's why I like this. They're now calling it quantum leaping. It's actually just a stepping into that part of you that knows, that part of you that's wise, that part of you that's pure. That's part.
Hmm.
I called my play beautiful because Linda in Spanish means beautiful, and that's just that. You see babies and they're just pure, and they're looking around going, "What the what?"
Yeah, they're curious.
They're curious, yes. And so, that aspect of us that is healed and okay, the part that I tucked away and tucked away and tucked away, and tucked away just cause, like, whatever, I'm over here, you're over there, I'll give you what you need, you know, but I'm saving myself for something, evidently.
Hmm.
And so when you start bringing that light into your heart and into your body and into, I did a lot of studying with the Chinese um, meridians of the body and the balance of the yin and yang and the
Hmm.
earth and fire and water. And the reason I love nature, I feel whole when I'm
Yes.
in large nature. And so that's what I wanted to feel more often. Yeah.
So you meet your soul sister,
I do.
and you go through some energy healing.
We did.
And so tell us more about that, and then what caused you to decide to become an energy healer yourself and how that's gone.
Oh, wow. Well, she was a single mother with a son. I was a single mother with a son. We met and just started spending time together, just supporting one another with socializing, hiking, going. This was in Arizona, so going to the desert. And she said she had learned this technique and could she try it on me? And I didn't know how to say no to anything yet.
Sounds like how I was
I didn't
too.
know how to say no to anything yet. And I didn't have a bad feeling about it.
Hmm.
But again, the programming was, what I wanted didn't matter. So I was like, okay, you want to do this, whatever. And seriously, I said, how long will it take? And she said, about 20 minutes. I'm like, okay. So laid back in the chair and she ran her hands over my energy bodies just to feel. She said, I'm feeling for, warm spots. She said, your whole body is a warm. Like,
Mm.
what? I can't find anything that's not messed up, basically, is
Oh
what
wow.
she said. And so she said, can we get together and do it again? And I said, sure. Well, lo and behold, then in the throes of post traumatic stress where reality starts to change, and
Mm.
I'm, in a car with a friend of mine, and suddenly I'm screaming and trying to get out of this pickup truck, and I'm in another reality
Oh,
altogether. And this friend of mine was wonderful. He was just
wow.
like, it's okay, you're all right, I don't know what's going on, but I'm here, we're here. And so what that did was that opened up the avenue for my physical body and my energy body to give up what it's been holding on to for,
Yeah.
30, 40 years.
Yep.
And they come out in full blown events. It started with Radha, like doing energy work and sending me love and sending me, you start bringing good things into your life, and
Yeah.
the bad stuff's got to go somewhere, right? It doesn't just like go, oh, okay. It's like,
Yeah. It doesn't embrace
that
it.
it doesn't go, oh, goody.
Yeah.
No. So she was at first the impetus. We would have a session, and she would start sending positive energy into my physical presence, and my body started giving up memories that were just, I was just re-experiencing them.
Yes. Yeah. That's a
And a
good way
part
to
of
put it. Not remembering,
yeah,
you were re-experiencing them.
full body. Like
Mhm.
if I'm a kid on the ground being raped and abused, I'm rolling on the ground screaming raped and abused, and the part of me that I had tucked away was like watching, going, wow, this is really weird, right?
Yeah.
Look at this. But it was real. It was real. I could tell you where, I could tell you when, I could tell you who. It wasn't like, oh, I'm having this experience in a vacuum. And it's like, oh, the sight, the sense, the
Yeah.
physical experience. So then I got adept at, and then, after the experience would occur, there was always what I called an aha. Like, oh, that's why I blah, 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 blah. So the 9-year-old one is one of the easiest and actually silliest responses, other than I can't live and I can't die. It's like, oh, I don't get to live, I don't get to die. Like, whatever. I'm just here to be abused. But at the time, I had hair probably about this length, and they used it to control me. There were two men in a car. Like, there was one man, he was very nice. He asked for directions. I went to the car. Boom, I was in the car. Somebody came from the back seat. They took me out in the woods, and it was horrible. But I was used to horrible, because horrible started day one. So it was like, frantically running and just screaming like a banshee, trying to get out of the car and fighting. And in that instance, one of them held on to my right leg as I was trying to get away, and they used my hair to control me. And the last place that I felt life, because I was being choked to death and I was being raped and terrorized, was in my right hip. Was the last place I felt a spark of life. And then poof, I was out of the body and going down the tunnel. And that was very scary. But when after the event occurred and they were done with the body, left it out, and I chose to breathe back into the body, because I didn't know anything other than abuse at the age of 9. And my mind went, just, number one, forget, this never happened. I used to say that in the play. This never happened. And if I didn't have long hair, they couldn't have controlled me. Now, isn't that weird?
You know what? It might sound weird, but it's not. It's not
It's
weird.
not. Because all through my 20s and 30s, I had really short, spiky hair. And interesting, I'm trying to grow it out to see. I never really learned how to do girl hair, because I always kept it like really short. And people used to comment like short and spiky, like angry, kind of thing.
So if they tried to grab your hair, it would hurt them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, try to get into this head. Nope.
Yeah, exactly.
Not happening. So there was always an aha. And once I got the aha from the experience, the concept that ran my life from that moment on, then the energy stopped, the memory stopped, the terrorizing stopped, and then we had to clean out the body, like all of the, sometimes it looked like vines, sometimes it was like dirt, sometimes it was a volcano. And so just like clean it out, take some nice baths, aromatherapy, beautiful music, nature, resting, something that nurtured me.
Yeah.
And once I did that several times, and I started to feel like me again, like, oh, here I am, right? Here I am. I'm not that. It takes a lot of energy to constrict those kinds of memories. It takes a lot of
Oh,
energy
yeah.
to try to keep that in. Then it started happening on its own without any help. So like,
Great.
oh, thanks. Yeah, great. And the floodgates open. And what would happen was my body would become just kind of numb. And then I recalled like the first rape as a child, I made myself a cloud. It was like, I'm a cloud, I'm a cloud, I'm a cloud, I'm a cloud. I'm not feeling this. I don't feel this. I can't feel this. And I made myself just gray and nothingness, right? Just a cloud. And so that feeling would come back as an adult. I'm in my 30s now. And I finally identified, like, oh, that's a memory coming up. So I could take myself into my bed, my safe space, put my hand on something metal, something
Ground
tangible.
yourself.
And I didn't go, who knew where I might go?
Yep.
And tell myself, this is just a memory. It didn't kill me, right? Because I'm here.
Right.
So
You're
just,
safe.
and what I learned, I can go through the memory, feel it, get the aha, do a meditation, cleanse it and clear it. And that was how I began to deal with it until the day I remember dying. And I had to just laugh. I'm like,
Gosh.
dang it, this didn't kill me, so let's just do this, right? And then pretty soon I'm going through this experience, the 9-year-old experience, and my body just stopped.
What do you mean it just stops?
No breath, no movement, no nothing. My body is dead. And I'm just laying there watching this in myself going, oh, dang it.
It's making me hold my breath.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, breathe, Lisa.
For a very
Breathe.
long time. And then I breathed back. Then it was done. It was like, yes, you did. Yes, that did, kill you, whatever, however you want to put that. You can say, I lost consciousness, but I wasn't breathing. It was, you
You're gone.
flatlined. Let's put flatlined. Then the memory released itself. I did what I knew how to do to let it go. And I think you got the aha. Death really doesn't kill. There is an eternal energy. There is a part of me that is not my physical body. And so I began to be able to take better care of myself.
Excellent.
Wow, that's a big story. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. No, I want you to tell your stories. This is how people are going to connect. This is how, you may have shared something that somebody else is like, oh my gosh, I felt like that too. Somebody else feels like that. So yeah,
no, I don't want to scare people. I want people to be okay.
Yeah, right. And, working through trauma is not easy. And at times it can be scary. At times it can be overwhelming. I mean, that's just a fact, The empowering thing, though, is that there are tools in place that we can use to help bring us, like you were talking about, you meditated, breathing, grounding yourself. You grounded yourself before you went on that last one where you're touching metal, I'm touching the table here,
Yeah.
So that's what's so wonderful now, that when I started my healing journey back when I was 19, I'm 61 now, so it's been a while, there was nothing out there for trauma. There was nothing out there at all.
Right.
There wasn't anything really until probably, I would say, the last 15, 20 years that we've started finding these modalities and kind of, it's probably like the 70s is when I think the ACE test came out. So that's really kind of when they're I know they were researching trauma before that, but that's when they started kind of bringing it to light a little bit. So it hasn't been around that long,
Right.
So,
you're right.
it's, Yeah, telling our stories is always important. It's an opportunity for all of us to connect because there's such crazy shit that goes on in our head.
True.
You
True.
know, there's just
And I
crazy
remember when
shit.
I was first, people were like, you need to talk about it. And I remember talking like this, you
Yes.
know, talking
Yes.
like this. And then,
Yes. There's
like,
shame.
because you don't talk, you don't know, you don't share what's going on at home, you know.
No. No. And and there's been, the thing that the listeners have to understand is, we want to share our stories. We also have to understand there's people that haven't experienced what we've experienced or even close. So it's hard for them. We can't expect them to understand or relate or be able to, so sharing our stories, we do have to be careful that we share them in a safe place,
Right.
especially in the
Right.
beginning, especially when we're beginning our healing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not offended. If I've had people say to me, how in the world can you do this? And I said, how in the world can I not do this?
You are compelled.
This
Yes.
is my journey. This is my journey. And this is what I'm supposed to do. And I do have to manage myself though, because it is heavy stuff. And it's like I can talk about my stuff and it doesn't have the effect on me. But when I hear other stories, it can have an effect on me because I
Mm.
care, right?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I do have to manage myself, and I have to make sure that I take a break. I go and take rest. I go out like nature. I go out for a walk. I exercise. I do things to help me work through this.
Right.
But
Right.
I,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's nothing else I could be doing.
Right. Right. So people used to ask me, why are you doing this play? And I'm like, I have no choice. Like, I'm just, someone gave me the word compelled.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say. That.
It's just, it's a compelling energy. I decided it's a work of art.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of healing endeavor, whether it be literal art, which I'm not good at, or
Mm-mm.
writing music, or giving a play, or writing a book, or listen, or if you listen to music and you see artists, and even in church, like I've done a million church services, they start out with a centering and an uplifting and a
Mm-hmm.
coming together, and then a rising, and then a prayer and meditation and coming in, and then you get good stuff hopefully coming to you, and then we bring them up to a closure of the experience and a joyful release for the day. And
Right.
sometimes, I've done weddings, I've done funerals. It's like, it's all, Lisa, it's all beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Even the darkness is gorgeous because it's a soul working through the yuck and the muck and the mire, you know, pushing the light out into the world. And I
Mm-hmm.
used to say, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not stop and pitch a tent, like don't don't give in.
Don't stay
Don't give
there.
in. But part of it is making sure you get in nature. When I work too much, I honestly had to write myself a note and go, oh, I love the sky, I love the air, I love the rain, I love good music, I love to meditate, I love, like, oh yeah, burn some incense, light a candle, oh yeah, and then go out and share my good self with the world, not my tired, cranky self.
Oh yeah, and I've been discovering myself for the last 7, 8 years or so,
Uh-huh.
discovering who I am, and I love trees.
Oh my gosh,
I
they're
love
wonderful.
trees. There's a couple trees I don't like. I don't like eucalyptus and I don't like pepper trees. But other than that, I love trees and I get a lot of enjoyment. I drive my husband crazy sometimes because we live out in the country. And so when we take the roads, there's these beautiful oak trees. I see them all the time, but they still take my breath away. I've seen them, I don't know how many times as we do these drives, and yet they still take my breath away. When
Oh,
they do the canopy and you're driving, oh my gosh, I'm
oh
just,
my
yeah, right.
gosh.
So that's
And
where I get my,
they're, oh yeah, me too. Me too. And I quite often think, an evergreen tree is not arguing with a birch tree about
Right?
being an evergreen tree. Like that's not their, like we are
They're just
all
there.
we're just, and there's summer, winter, fall, spring, blossoming.
All the
There's
different
vacation, all
seasons.
the different seasons. They're
There's a
just
song by Nicole Nordeman. She's a Christian artist.
uh-huh.
And the song is Every Season. I think that's what it's
Oh,
called. But she talks about the different seasons, and
yeah.
she links it to our lives of when we're going, when it's
Yeah.
summer and it's happy and it's, you're outside playing and
Right.
it's joyful and you're
Yeah.
playing games, and then you enter into fall, into autumn, and you start losing your leaves, and then
Mm.
you go into winter and it's cold and you're frozen, and and then you're coming into spring and you break free and you come alive again. It's such a fabulous song, but it talks about the different
Oh,
seasons and our
wonderful.
connection with nature,
Right.
and how
Right.
parallel it is. It's really interesting.
Right. And how unifying it is. You
Mm-hmm.
know, how, yes, how deep that connection is and the
Exactly.
rootedness. It helps me to be here a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah. It's beautiful. And what's the name of that artist again?
Nicole Nordeman.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nicole Nordeman, and I think the song is called Every Season. It's something season. It's on one of
Okay.
her earlier
I can look
albums.
her up. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's every time I play it, it makes me cry. So there you
Yay!
are.
You know, and someone can say we are a statistic at our age. You know, it's like it's really nice being at this stage
Yes,
where you can start to breathe a little bit about who you are and what
yes,
you're about and let go of all of that trying to be
exactly.
something.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I'm finally living my life. I'm not
Yes.
existing or surviving, because that's how I
Yes.
lived for so many years, is in that survival mode. And it's, you know, when I think back on that, it causes my chest to tighten up, because it was just such a
Yeah.
hard time.
It's horrible. Yeah.
You imagine your adrenal glands just on fire all the time. You're always
Yes.
looking for a fire to put out, and
Yes.
if you can't find one, you'll make one, because that's just
Yes.
how it is, because you're used to chaos.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Who
You
are
got to
you
have
without
chaos
this
because that's your
chaos?
normal.
Right. Right. For
Yeah.
sure.
So
Yeah. I always
now,
felt like I was running,
oh
like
yeah,
running. People would try to hug me and I'd be like, no, don't, don't
yeah, don't
stop
slow
me.
me down, don't
No,
slow me
no,
down.
no.
Well, and I
And the
talked
only
about,
place, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, no, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go.
Well, I was just going to say, it's just like, this will tell you, and I've shared this story on my podcast a few times, that my ex-husband used to say to me, he'd call me on my cell phone. My cell phone's literally sitting next to me. And I'd pick up the phone and he'd say, "Did you run to the phone?" And I said, "No, why?" He says, "You're breathing hard."
Oh,
My breathing was so shallow that I always sounded
oh,
like I was
yeah.
running,
Oh my
because
gosh. Yes.
I was running inside.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's hysterical.
And it's
I mean,
taken,
not in a funny
no,
way,
but
but
just,
no, my computer's doing the same thing. I took it to the doctor and they're like, we can't get it to do that. Well, around me, my laptop's like, chill out.
oh my gosh, it's so funny.
Oh my God.
And so now I'm always paying attention to my breathing, and I'm also paying attention to not always being so tight up, because I always
Yes.
felt like I was like this.
Yes.
But my body, especially if something triggers me, I go right there. But I know it.
Yes.
I know it.
Oh,
I catch it, and I'm able to bring myself down, because that just, when I get like that, that just escalates me. That tells my body, okay, we're off to the races now, and I'm off, and I'm into
right.
a trigger. So I'm aware of it now, and where I can catch it, I go, oh, no,
Right.
no, no, we're okay, we're safe. Yeah, breathe,
Yeah.
relax, you're okay. And then I can go into the situation and manage it
I
calmly.
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. I
So
totally understand.
I think a
And the
lot of
only
people can.
place I didn't feel that way was when I was performing
I was going to say,
music. And so when I was on stage singing or, whatever, or doing a church service or whatever I was doing at the moment musically, then I got to show up big as me and fill a room with love and fill a room with beauty and fill a room with,
How
you know, I
fulfilling
was
that
in my
is for you.
30s before somebody said, I was in my 30s before someone said, oh, we just love it when you sing. You just bring up such good memories for us. Oh, I feel, you know, blah, 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 you know, whatever, a positive response, which I never got as a child. Never, you know, musically.
You want to hear an interesting story? This is really interesting. So, and I don't know why it just popped into my head. So I'm not a singer. I want to be a singer, but I don't have a voice. But I love to sing. I love music. And this was during the time I was still going to church, and my first husband and I were separated, and it was a really hard time for me. It was really, really hard, really hard. And I remember I was in church. And I used to go on Saturday night because it was a little more relaxed and casual. And I always like to sit towards the front because I get distracted by people. So I don't want to be distracted by people. So I'm sitting in the front, but there's one row in front of me. And there's a little girl that was sitting in front of me. She's probably like 9 or 10. And I was singing from my heart. I was really singing. I was, you know, because I was just in a really dark place. And it was just when I was like you, when I would sing and get into worship, it would take me to a different place. And so I was there. I was in that place, and, you know, of course, tears, and the song's over. And the little girl turned around to me and she says, "You have the most beautiful voice." Right?
Yes.
I'm like,
yes.
No, I don't, but okay. But that's because it came from my heart.
Yeah.
It came from inside. It wasn't me, this voice.
Yeah.
It was so, I was like, wow. I just took it in. I just, you know, I didn't disagree with her.
I'm so proud of you.
But it was really special. It was really interesting, but
yeah. And you know what? I'm going to share that I'm a vocal coach. And so that's where the voice is, like the real voice. The job of, I've always felt my job was to get everything out of the way so that that voice could speak. And when you access that in your breathing, right?
Yeah.
You have to breathe. And you're just letting sound out especially in a spiritual and emotional and centering, gorgeous stream of Godness.
Yeah.
It sounds gorgeous. It's all of the stress that makes people sound rare, you know.
Yeah. It's us holding it.
That's so exciting.
I know, it was really cool.
I feel like in your podcast, you are really using your voice, and it's very powerful and empowering. And I really noticed that that beautiful, your essence comes through in your caring, and as you're sharing your story, and as you're listening, and as you're sharing the pearls of wisdom with all your listeners. It's really coming from a beautiful place.
Thank you.
I personally really appreciate that for those of us out here.
Well, I'll tell you, my voice was shut down for a long time. And so now I don't care.
Yay!
Now I don't care. I'm gonna share, and if you don't want to hear it, then don't listen.
Then don't listen. Go away.
You know, this is for the people who really want to get on their healing journey. You know, that's what this is all about. Because I'm putting my ugly stuff out there because I share stories that, honestly, a story will come to my head and I'm like, oh my God, I've never shared that story. I can't believe I'm going to put it out there. But okay, here we go. I'm going to share it. Because somebody could connect with that. And if that story helps someone go, whoa, okay, I think I'm ready to take a step in my healing journey. It was worth it. It's worth it.
Absolutely.
I used to be so worried about what everybody thought about me, what everything I did. The way I looked, the way I talked, everything. It was so important that I have everybody accept me, and made sure that I was a chameleon with everybody. So I would be the person that I think you want me to be, so that you would like me and accept me. It takes so much energy.
And from one chameleon to another.
Yes.
You know, that's a beautiful skill that we learn as children to keep ourselves safe, you know, from others. I will give you what you need so that you won't hit me, yell at me,
Yeah.
whatever. As long as you're happy,
Correct. And that goes into
then
people pleasing because you learn
yes,
as a
and
child that works.
yeah, it works. And so, but it doesn't foster the growth of a beautiful, strong woman. And so,
No.
yeah,
I was there
like,
for a
oh,
long time.
well.
So speaking of that, let's
Yes,
talk
ma'am.
about the 5 P's for personal empowerment because
Yes,
we're going to empower
ma'am.
our listeners and we're going to talk about passion, purpose, power, perfect, and peace.
You are so beautiful. Thank you for your organization. All right.
I'll do it for my own sanity, I tell you.
So the story behind this is I was 50 years old and I had just left my third husband, homeless, no money, no car, bad back. I was a mess.
Oof.
And this gentleman, I felt like was a karmic relationship. He came in, said he was going to produce my play. We were going to do this together. And I'm like, okay, that's part of what I feel like I need to be doing. Thank you so much. Neglected to check out that he was a rageaholic, an abuser, sent us to bankruptcy, and couldn't
Narcissistic.
stand the fact that his job was to support me. So he had major women's issues. So I escaped and ended up on the floor at a friend's house,
Oh, dear.
laying on my back going, dang it, I'm 50 frickin' years old and I've done it again, right? And again, what, half a century later,
Yeah.
what is wrong with me? I'm laying on the floor. I've been through all of this post-traumatic stress stuff. I'm sharing my story. I'm trying to be a beautiful, strong woman. And dude, here I am. And so I just said, all right, what's wrong with me? And just laid there. And then the first word that came into my consciousness was power. I was like, yep, I gave my power away. Yep, I did. Where's my power? I'm not, yeah. Enough said, right?
Yep. Yep.
Power. Yeah. Um, so I'm like, okay. And then, of course, there's more than that.
Always is.
There's never just one word, right?
But wait, there's more.
So I must admit I don't really remember which word came first, other than power came first. Although I see that I listed passion first. I'm going to go with purpose because I feel like we all have a purpose, even though it's just showing up, and wearing weird hair or raising children or doing healing or doing a podcast or writing a song or I see people every day living in adult family homes where there's 4 to 5 residents that are unable to physically care for themselves. And I watch them create families within these little homes, and they take care of each other and they care about one another. And I go in and play music and sing with them and laugh with them. And I say, you make a difference. They're like, I'm like, no, you are making a difference with me. What would I be doing if I wasn't coming here to visit you? So even though it looks like sometimes you're not doing anything, there is a purpose for your existence. And with that, I relate to the trees, right? They have a purpose. They're just there. They more trees will just propagate. So I reconnected with myself that, okay, I do have a purpose I'm still here. A lot of things have happened. There is a purpose for my life. The angels set me back. I'm not getting out of this. So, okay, access my power, stay anchored, connect with my purpose, which is, at the time, I told someone, they were like, well, what is your purpose? And I said, right now, it feels like just to take up space, like just to be here now, as esoteric authors will say. So life makes a difference. Then passion. Like, wow, when you're abused, what do you do with your passion?
That disappears.
It does, because it's not safe. You can't like
No.
be passionate, can't be angry, can't be confrontational, can't be
No.
joyous, can't be, we weren't allowed to laugh. You know, it was like, what do you do with this passion? And your passion is your creative energy. And I think that's what we sometimes find in churches, and we find with nature, we find that ability to create life. Passion is a creative force of energy. So it's like, okay, what's my passion? Women's empowerment. Because Lord knows we needed it at the time. And we need it today as well. It's come a long way, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
So every day I have to remind myself to be in my power, anchor myself in what I consider to be a positive energy for myself, take care of my purpose in life, be purposeful in every moment, and be passionate about, and my passion is actually just sharing love and beauty. So if it's, and it just cracks me up because now I'm playing Elvis, I'm playing Johnny Cash, I'm but I'll Taylor Swift, I am playing music for people who are at the end stages of their lives. And this is what brings them love and tears to their eyes, or laughter and joyous, and
Peace.
can tell me stories, and it brings them to life. And so just coming in and playing with them, but being purposeful in my, I just come and love on you for an hour. What do you need? I come in. All right. And as far as the book is concerned, yes, my passion is upliftment, and hopefully this story, just telling it as a story, that people fall in love with Linda and share in her journey, and as you said, take any steps they need to take for themselves, even baby steps. And there's, if I may say, there's no backward steps.
No, sometimes you'll step back a little bit, and that's okay.
Yeah, you can bring yourself, but there's no going backwards.
No.
It's all, life is always moving forward.
Yeah.
So when I see all these quotes about, one step forward, two step back, like, no, maybe a step out and two steps in, for expansion. But anyway, that's my passion. Can you tell?
Yes.
All right. And now let's talk about perfection.
Yeah, because that can.
Oh my goodness gracious!
I was busy being a perfectionist for a long time too. See, if everything's perfect, then nobody can talk bad about me.
That's right. But you know what? Somebody always talks bad about me.
No matter what.
Someone's always unhappy. Someone's always unhappy with something I'm doing. I finally, like you got like, oh well. So perfect. The definition that I received at that time, laying on the floor, receiving these words, and it was so nice of them to put them in P's so that I could remember them.
Yeah.
Life is perfect. Like even the battles are perfect because something's trying to happen underneath all this chaos. Something beautiful is trying to make a change. And in order to make a change, things get a little messy. And I remember angels telling me, life is messy. I'm like, oh, no, it needs to be.
I know, I like everything in order.
I don't function well if things are a mess.
No,
Once my structures are in place and I've taken care of what I needed to take care of for me, then I feel very creative and very open and very able to share. But in this definition of perfect, like let go of the need for perfection and let the stronger energies work it through. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, well, perfection can shut everything down. Perfection is really controlling, right? And so it sounds like it's like let go of the perfectionism and that control and allow things to come up. And
yes.
Yeah.
And there's the perfection is in letting that come up and getting out of its way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I struggled with that for a bit to try to understand. And when things were going my way, I remember being on the phone one day going, I don't know what's perfect about this. But I'm sure something is perfect. And then later it's like, oh,
there it is.
Like, oh, yes, it's all working out. Lovely. All right. And once you get the aha and the oh, once you're anchored in your power, you've aligned with a purpose for yourself, even if it's just taking up space and showing up and being available to life. And you find some passion for like that creative, regenerative property, then life can become more perfect for you, meaning you're a great example. You know, you've got a husband, you've got your podcast, you're rocking and rolling, as we would say. You're doing a
beauty
great
from
job.
ashes.
Yeah, pardon me?
Making beauty from ashes.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes, it's beautiful. Then there's a sense of peace.
Yes.
There's a sense of peace. And once there's a sense of peace, then everything begins to expand for you. But when you're like I was, running, racing, trying to make all this happen, hiding, not hiding, showing up, not showing, what do I say? What do I think? When I get myself aligned with those P's, then I'm like, oh, okay. Kind of like a walk in the forest, it's just beautiful.
It's interesting because peace is so important, because you and I both were raised in chaos and lived in chaos. And my adult life was just chaos. And it was just because it was my normal. And I remember when I realized that I just lived in constant chaos. And my husband then and I, we were just constantly in chaos, and I got tired of it.
Yeah.
And I work really hard to stay away from complete chaos. Like, our home is our sanctuary, and we bring the peace in, and it's for us and it's for anybody else that walks into the house. And we make sure that there's no chaos. We don't live the chaotic life anymore either. But there's, and I'll tell you though, the hard part is the transition from living in chaos and then living in peace. That transition period is really difficult. I just want to let the listeners know that that's a challenge.
It's not an easy task, no.
Because you want to go to the chaos even though you don't want to live in chaos.
Right.
Because you're going to what you know and what, unfortunately, you're comfortable with, because it's what you know. Right. So give yourself a lot of grace and allow that peace. And I'm trying to think, like, I'm trying to think of some of the things that went through my mind during that transition period of, I didn't want to live in chaos anymore. I was heading towards peace, but it was really uncomfortable. And I kept feeling like, okay, I'm waiting for that shoe to drop. As soon as there was any kind of peace, oh, where's the shoe? It's going to drop. I know it's going to drop. I know it's going to drop. And then here we go,
Right.
And at first, I'll be honest, I was the one that created the chaos. It's almost like I got so uncomfortable with the peace that I would create the chaos to get comfortable. It sounds crazy, but that's what I did. Right. So I'm just telling the listeners that this is a possibility that you're going to go through. It's going to be uncomfortable. I don't know what you'll go through, but this is some of the stuff that can happen. And so don't be surprised or discouraged. Just keep seeking peace. Because once you get it into your life, like it's in our life now, and when there's chaos, I do everything I can to get that chaos resolved.
Right. Yes. And one of the things I learned teaching voice, being a vocal coach, teaching voice lessons, or even piano lessons. I taught a lot of musical students of variety of ages and experiences, is I always go where it works. When I first started my healing process, I don't know, did you ever do the little triangle with your finger and look through it, and it's like a little magnify, you can see clearly?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Do you remember that, doing that as a kid?
Yes. Yes.
I felt like that's how big I was when I started. Like I was like that minute, and oh, I'm going to bring tears. See how sweet you are.
Yeah.
And I felt like everything else was just huge. And I was that little tiny spark.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. And people would say, why are you doing this? I'm like, because, and my quote is, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. I'm going to go where it works. Like, this is who I am. I identify as a little spark of light, this little light of mine. And I just kept focusing on that and expanding it and focusing on it and expanding it and focusing. And so when I teach singing, it's the same thing. Like, where can you sing where it feels good? All right, let's do that.
Start there.
And let's start there and then start expanding it. Yeah, I have a claim to fame story where I took a non-singer that looked like John Belushi, who wanted to do a show, and I taught him how to sing. He couldn't sing a note. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So I play a note on the piano going, na, 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 can you sing that one? You're like, ah. And I'm like, okay. Na, 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 can you sing? So I found one note he could sing. And I'm thinking, we're going to Vegas. We're going to Vegas with this show. I'm like, oh. So I got him to sing the note. I'm like, okay, now do it again. And he could do it again. I'm like, okay. All right. And then we'd go up one note, and then we'd go down. And so pretty soon he could sing 3 notes. And lo and behold, this guy took one of my best friends, went to Vegas, did Legends in concert, the John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd show for years, making a whole bunch of money. And I saw him on an airplane once, and he's like, "There's my vocal coach. You gotta sing." I was like, but spiritually, peacefully, like one tree, like lighting one candle and thinking one thought, or listening to one song, or just stopping for a minute and breathing for a minute and just feeling that. And then I know in all of us, there's that piece of us that's going, yeah, this is it. This feels good. This is not that it's easy. The focus is difficult, but this is where it works. Like, oh, okay, this is where it works. And pretty soon, you can take that piece into traffic.
Yeah. Still working on that one. I'm still working on that one. Still working on that
I take the back roads through the trees. That's how I do
traffic.
Anyway.
I've learned to give myself plenty of time in driving just so that I don't get frustrated with others.
I know, it's so hard. And it's like, okay, go ahead. I'm fine.
I'm going to stay in my
here. And then pretty soon I'm like, all right, just drive, will you? So, anyway, yes.
So that you gave a great example of, and I talk about this too, of especially in the beginning of your healing journey, it can feel so overwhelming. It can feel so huge, like you were describing. It feels huge. And you are so right. Start with what works. That one little thing. Yeah. Start there. And I promise you, you start there, it will get bigger. It will get better. It's just sometimes, think about it. We lived in chaos and all these lies and beliefs that we had about ourselves. We have to undo all that. It's a lot. And you're not going to undo that overnight. And so you just start small, because I know for me, I am an overthinker too, but I can get overwhelmed. I can look at the whole picture and go, oh, I can't, I just can't. It's just too much. Right. And that has shut me down for years. And what I've learned to do is go, okay, I can't do all of it. What can I do? What one thing can I do today that will help me today? And I find that one thing, and sometimes it'll allow me to do a few others that day. It'll open that door, but it's so easy to get overwhelmed by the whole picture. And you gave a great example of finding that one thing that works for you at that moment so that you can begin that healing journey.
So beautifully said. Yes. I think the concept that I run into with some of our younger ladies is they think that meditation and yoga or whatever or tapping or whatever technique they're using to help themselves is an escape from their lives, as opposed to being a foundation to bring their most powerful self into their lives. And I think if there's a way I could inspire people to turn their thoughts around, to live a more centered existence. The more you can bring yourself into your heart and into your stomach, and as well as your brain, as well as your voice, that and your feet if you're a dancer or a walker or whatever, whatever you need to do to be the best version of you that you can be in this moment, then that begins to become your reality, as opposed to the reality that's stuck on repeat. Stuck on loop, right?
So many of us, we struggle with we want to help others, and we're trying to people please, and and we get caught up in that. And what I want the listeners to know, that it's not selfish or wrong to take care of yourself, because if you are an empath, and I think unfortunately there's a lot of survivors that are, if you want to be, you and I want to help others. That's one of our purposes in life. But I can't help everybody and neglect myself and be successful in helping other people, because I'm going to burn myself out. And it's the old airplane thing that when the what is it, the oxygen mask comes down, you're supposed to put it on you before you put it on somebody else. And it's the same thing here. We've got to have our time, and it's not selfish. It's not wrong, no matter what anybody else says to you, to start taking care of yourself. Because if you want to be able to help others, you've got to energize yourself. You can't keep pouring out, and expect that you're going to be able to sustain that. You've got to have moments of pouring into yourself, whether you have someone pouring into you or you're pouring into yourself. Whatever it is, going and meditating or whatever it is that revitalizes you is so important, and it's not wrong. And, us that are healing people pleasers, we would people please to the point of, it's like I would go and go and go. I'd start getting sick and I wouldn't stop until I would get myself in bed because I was so sick, because I didn't stop back when my body was warning me. I just, oh no, I'm good, keep going. And then I end up getting so sick that I can't even help myself.
And oh my gosh, you're so right. The signs are there right away. The signs are there to help us.
Listen to and that's where self-awareness will help you, and it will keep you from getting to that point. Because that self-awareness, if you're paying attention, you're going to listen to your body. And you're going to go, okay, you know what? My body's giving me warnings that I need to listen. And that's it's so important. And it's a process.
It is.
I had to burn myself out a few times.
One of my favorite yoga instructors does a gratitude meditation that I really appreciate in the morning, because I wake up and I use my empathic ability to sing music for people to make them feel better, not just to love me, but you know, I was trained, and it's still true. Nobody wants to hear what I want to sing. So, but this is a healing thing, and my job is to sing what will wake up the residents and what will get them moving and help them feel good about themselves. So that's how I use my empathic ability for good, meaning I read a crowd empathically and can say, okay, somebody needs a love song, so we'll do a love song for them, and that kind of thing. So we can use our dysfunctions for good if we turn it around. But and with that, this lovely yoga instructor does a meditation on gratitude, and he talks about breathing, that if you pay attention to your breathing, and I always had trouble with that.
Me
I don't
too.
know about you.
Yeah.
I always am like, I don't know. My body will stop. So, habitually. But he says when you breathe in, there's a pause before you exhale. And then there's another pause before you breathe in. Like if you allow your body, which it does anyway, naturally, that there's a pause after you breathe in, and there's a pause after you exhale. And I thought, Wow. I mean, this was just like a couple of weeks ago, and I've been doing this for decades. And I was like, that's such a powerful analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, yeah, we can run, love to run, great fun, but also to remember to allow for those moments of pausing.
Mm-hmm. Pausing is so important. And you
Yeah.
can't think clearly when you're living in chaos.
Oh, gosh, no. No, no. Mm-mm.
Nothing's going to be clear when, I know for me, nothing was ever clear. And it was just, it was like, okay, I got to deal with that. Okay, deal with that, it was like constant move, 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 move. It was just, there wasn't that.
Yeah, there wasn't that peace, that centered in your power,
Yeah.
purposeful relationships, purposeful conversations,
Mm-hmm.
passionate living, the joy of whatever it is that you came here to do, and then just letting it be perfect. I think those of us who are abused so traumatically, and I see it. I have an older sister, and I see it in my sister that she's either trying to control the conversation or defend herself in the conversation. Like
Yeah.
you have a meaningful
Mm-hmm.
conversation, but she hasn't done 30 years of personal development work with herself. She's been living in that function, and it's not her job to do my life. My job is to do my life. And so to watch that, there's like no right way, no wrong way, but if you come with an intention, there he is, Wayne Dyer, the power of intention. And the intention is to love and be kind and be communicative and be clear, and be constructive in your conversations. Then it's okay. If somebody's angry at me, I can say, oh, I'm so sorry. And I
Yeah.
feel that way. I apologize if there's anything I did, but rather than running away from someone, or, if I come into a narcissist that needs to make me wrong, it's like, okay, oh gosh, I'm so sorry I did that wrong for you. I'm so cooperative that way, that I do
Mm-hmm.
things wrong so that people can be right.
Yeah.
And it kind of becomes this just silliness, but I understand because I've been there. And so I don't have a judgment. Oh gosh, no judgment, please.
Mm-hmm.
I've
You've
done the
had enough of that.
stupidest things. I've done this. I can be more stupider than anybody, It's
Yeah.
like at this point, I was telling a story about my mom, who, when I left my third husband homeless and broke and all that stuff, and my mother said, "Do you think it's you?" Yeah, and that would be a loving response from my mother.
But she was kind of right, you're
Yeah,
like,
oh yeah, she was, I was like, yep,
unfortunately.
yep, I think it's me. I used to play baseball, 3 strikes, I'm out. I get it. I don't know how to do this. I'm going to stop trying to do what I don't know how to do and work on myself.
Yeah.
And so, so, but, then there can be, laughter and joy about we're all just trying to do the best we can do.
Yeah, we really are. And we're still going to mess up, and that's okay. We're on a
Yeah,
journey. It's okay. We can always clean up the messes, We can always
yeah.
clean them up. It's all right. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect, so don't even
It's
try
not
to make
going
it perfect.
to
It's
be.
just
Yeah.
not. Just seek out
I'm
peace.
thrilled that we have U-turn lanes.
Oh,
When you miss an exit, we do U-turn. Every time I do that, I'm like, oh, you can
love
always turn
U-turns.
around. Like, it's like,
Love
thank
U-turns.
you. Love U-turns. Put a little sign and everything. No, that way. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
Okay,
got
no
it.
big deal. No big deal. Just,
Thank you.
yeah, you don't need to ruminate on it and beat yourself up like I used to do. I'd make a mistake and I would spend weeks beating myself up over it.
Oh gosh, yeah, I still do.
The
Like
person that I
even,
made the mistake with long forgot it, but not me torturing
you
myself.
know, yeah. I have, may I share a quick story? I'll make it
Yes.
fast.
Yes.
I traveled to adult family homes. I went to a beautiful home. There's a lady, 99 years old.
Oh.
Um, and she says, I don't like music. I only like classical music. I'm like, okay. She used to be a doctor. And I said, oh, a doctor of what? And she said, medicine. So kind of that curt 99-year-old.
Yes.
And so I'm going, okay. I said, well, how about hymns? Do you like hymns? Quite often our 80, 90-year-old residents, really love the classic gospel hymns that they can feel. And they really have taught me a lot about God. And she was like, oh, yeah, I used to, she used to be a minister and she used to do this.
Wow.
And she doesn't hear very well. And so I said, okay, well, how great thou art, amazing grace, what I was raised Lutheran, Missouri Synod Lutheran. And she said, oh, misery. Misery. I think it was her accent, but I heard misery.
That's what I used to say.
Did you really? Oh my gosh. So anyway, I saw her last week. So I always sing a hymn for her and she sings along. You can't hear, kind of monotone. I don't care. She's singing, she's remembering, she's engaging, she's feeling, reliving, feeling good stuff. And so I was there on Sunday afternoon and I said, okay, what hymn should we sing? And she said, I don't know. So I sang How Great Thou Art, which is one of my favorite. Because when I sing Amazing Grace, I cry.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. I look around these people and I'm like, oh, I just love them so much.
Yeah.
And they're like, sing Amazing Grace. I'm like, oh, okay. I can't look at you because I'll cry.
Yeah.
Right? So I sang How Great Thou Art, and she wasn't singing with me. And I thought, I made a mistake. I chose the wrong song, or whatever. It was like I felt like I was unsuccessful in my song choice, and I had to talk myself into, no, you were inspired to sing How Great Thou Art. You love singing How Great Thou Art. It's uplifting. Just shut up and drive home. Let it go, let it be. You don't know why really you sang How Great Thou Art, other than that was what your spirit said to do. And so that's just kind of a quick, like even today, I don't do things perfectly, but they seem to love me anyway.
I know. I've learned to laugh at myself. Like I don't take myself so serious like I used to. And it was the mindset that's different when I think back on that. The reason why I was like that is because it was, if I wasn't perfect, it was an opportunity for someone to not just criticize, but, belittle and correct me. It's like, because as a child, I felt like I could never do anything right. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't do it right. And so I took that into my adult life, and it's unreasonable. I mean, you can't sustain that. And I guess I don't know where the switch happened, where I decided that I'm sick of being perfect or trying to be perfect, because I know I'm not, but I'm sick of that energy being spent on that, because here's an example. I would have family come over, for instance. Oh, the house has to be perfect. The house has to be perfect. Oh, the food has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. Otherwise, they're not going to enjoy themselves. And I was so caught up in making sure that this stuff was perfect that I didn't get to enjoy my time with them. They didn't get to enjoy time with me because I wasn't fully present. I was so focused on making sure it was all perfect. And that's not what they wanted. They wanted to come over and visit first and enjoy the food. And they didn't care about the house. They didn't care. They cared about spending time with me. But again, not understanding that people actually liked me or even loved me and wanted to spend time with me. I just had this perfectionism in my mind that no, that's what it has to be perfect for them. And I don't want to give them, of course, any reason to criticize me. And they wouldn't have anyway. That's the crazy part.
Right.
They weren't going to criticize me. I was going to criticize me.
I totally understand. My mother was like that. And I find myself being like her.
Yeah.
Meaning I got to get music together. I got to do this. I need to do the dishes. I need to take care of this. I need to, and I have two beautiful, sweet cats that have been with me. Yes, I'm an older lady with cats.
Nothing wrong with that.
And they're like following me around going, meow, meow. Can you pet me? Will you sit
Patience.
down? I've got one that when I sit down, she like jumps on my lap, and I'm like, I can only sit for a minute. I've got to do this. And then I think, oh, you're just being, I call it channeling Helen. My mother's name was Helen. I'm channeling Helen. It's like, I'm not being Sanar. What would,
Yes.
maybe I need to do that. What would Sanar do?
Yeah.
What would the best part of who I am do in this moment? But I get caught up in the whirlwind of,
Yeah.
I feel better when it's clean, but
Yeah. I do
it's,
too. It's finding that balance because my house is clean, but it's not for the same reason. It's not because it's got to be perfect because it's not. I mean, you can walk in, you can come in right now and like my kitchen's clean, but there's stuff around. It's lived in.
Mhm.
But for me, for my mind, I do better when things are put away.
Yeah.
I do much better when things are organized. And that's just me. It doesn't have anything to do with my perfectionism that I used to have at all. Because like I said, someone can knock on the door right now and the house isn't perfect. It's not. I don't care. And I'd welcome them in. Where before I'd be horrified. I'd be so embarrassed.
Oh.
But now I have things in order, but it really, like I said, I'm organized for my own sanity.
Absolutely. No, I can't focus on
No.
things if there's a mess.
No,
Yeah.
and my husband's the same way. He's the same way, which is really
nice.
refreshing. Yeah, because he, we have a lived-in house, but he does like order too, and he'll put things in order for himself. And it's the same thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I've broken away from that perfectionism, thank God, and I laugh at myself now. I have a good time. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
And I think it came from, both of my parents came from abusive
Me too.
and abandoned households.
Yeah.
And I think that need to control their environment was necessary for them to
survive.
And they came from a generation that, we talk about, we didn't have help. They didn't have help at all. We didn't talk about those things.
There was nothing.
And
the
so
abuse that went on then with them is just horrific.
And then my other relatives were like hoarders.
Yeah.
So I grew up with people who were like way overweight, or my mother was anorexic, or our house had to be clean. That was, we woke up to a list of chores on the weekends, and things had to be done in a certain way before we could do anything. But then other people's houses were just like piled with stuff, and that didn't bother them. And I know for me, it's been a journey to be comfortably messy. Like not to come home from a busy day and go, oh, it needs to be cleaned or whatever. Like, dude, we're going to have a cup of tea and put our feet up and, take care of the cats.
Do the dishes tomorrow.
Do the dishes tomorrow. Yeah.
I mean, I do love coming out to a clean kitchen in the morning. I do love that, but.
You love that?
Yeah, but I'm not going to. If it means I have to rest.
I think it's just such the joy of having traveled all those expectations that are placed upon us through families or society or culture or whatever. And then finally coming to a place to go, what's really important? What's really important in this now? This person, this moment, this, what you're doing is really important and really exciting. And I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. And you as well. I mean, what you're doing, you're right in the same line. You're helping others, and you're helping to shorten their suffering.
Oh, yes.
That's what this podcast is about. Is I'm helping people shorten their suffering.
I like that.
So instead of having 40 years of suffering, let's knock it way down. And it's interesting following my listeners and looking at, I like I said, I don't look behind the scenes a lot of what's going on, but every once in a while I just kind of want to check. And when I first started doing the podcast, it was really interesting. There was a lot of people between the ages of like 40 and 60. And now I've got a lot of younger listeners, which excites me because, okay, my darn dogs.
Oh, that's
my darn dog. Sorry.
Dogs are wonderful.
Trouble and more trouble.
Yay.
But it's refreshing because I want them to be able to shorten their time, that they're not 40 years old before they finally start getting help. Get help in your 20s. And there is help out there now. And I will say, always go to a trauma therapist. Always, not just a regular talk therapist. It has to be a trauma therapist. It has to be someone who specializes in trauma and understands. Because like you were explaining, you've got to get this out of your body. You've got to get it out of your subconscious, and regular talk therapy isn't going to do it. Talk therapy has its place for sure.
I heard you say that on another podcast, and I really liked that, because when I was inspired to go searching for a therapist, I just knew who had read a book about what I'd been through, and I didn't want to talk to them. I just knew that they couldn't help me.
Yeah.
And then I did found a wonderful lady that was just like so real and so anchored, and I don't know what her story was, but it was like, oh, this is the one. I just knew.
You connected.
Connected with that. And I think sometimes we get almost too cerebral about things, because it's like, oh, this seems right, this seems right, this seems, but then there's an inner drive that you might as well follow.
That's going to tell you the truth. That is going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
When I've gone against that, I've paid the price every time. Mm-hmm.
I know, but and we are really getting much more adept at combining the two, like the drive and then the thinking and the awareness and then the communication,
right?
All working together. You want all parts working together.
Right. Together. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yes,
if our listeners wanted to reach out to you, if they wanted to do some energy healing or maybe a little coaching, how could they reach you? And of course, we'll have this all on the YouTube.
Okay. Well, my website is actually my name, which is spelled weird. SanarAlixandyr.com. SanarAlixandyr.com. That's my website. You can send me an email. I can communicate through text, through email, through Zoom, all of that. Yeah.
So you're available.
I'm also on LinkedIn, and the book is available on Amazon. Excellent. In audiobook, as well as Kindle, as well as hardback and paperback.
Nice. Yeah, I love listening to my books. And then if they're good enough, I end up buying them, because some of them you want to write notes or underline or so I'm always listening to my books.
I have a short attention span, so I need tangible books to make me sit down and read. Yeah, no, I love all the opportunities. Yeah. The young lady that did the audiobook did a really sweet job of telling Linda's story. The book is Linda's story up until the moment that I decided to change my name into Sanar. So it's her journey. It's an homage to her. It's a fulfillment of a promise to that little girl that I would share her story.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now you're doing it. So one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you want to leave our listeners with?
I love you. I do. I am so proud of everybody who's working it. We're really working it. Male, female, trans, bi, non-binary. I met with a dear friend the other day, and he was showing me his car. And he identifies it as gay, but he said, my car's really a Mercedes identifying as, no, it's a Subaru identifying as a Mercedes. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, that whole inner outer thing is really indicative of the global changes that we are participating in. And it is my dream that we begin to be the love that we really are individually, and grow into beautiful trees, be anchored in the truth of love. It's all good.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, thank you, Sanar, for coming on and sharing your story. And you got into some great detail, and I know that our listeners are going to walk away with some great tools that they can add to their little toolbox and helping them out. So
I hope
I love that.
so.
Yeah.
It's my goal to be of service. Anything I can do to help, I'm willing and arms open.
That's what they need.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Hope so. I hope so. You know.
It's what they didn't get when they were children.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
sometimes we just need to have a mom hug us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been nice, huh?
Yeah. Seriously.
Would have been
We've
nice.
actually done that with women we've worked with. Is sometimes they just need a hug, like a mom, like a mother hugging them.
Right.
And it's really, woo, boy, you want to talk about a release.
It is powerful. It is. It's just, yeah, it's very healing, and everyone deserves to be loved.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming
Oh,
on. Thank you for sharing your story and helping women heal and become the person that they were actually originally supposed to be. Taking them back to their roots.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for providing this opportunity for all of us.
You're welcome.
On all sides of the spectrum.